Hi, and welcome to That's Ruddy Mysterious, a podcast of short tales about true mysteries. What happened to the Flannan Isles Lightkeepers? Who was responsible for the Gardner Museum heist? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts for all episodes can be found at that'sruddymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the roaming ruins of Guanabara Bay. On January 1st, 1502, the Portuguese navigator Pedro Álvares Cabral and his crew were the first Europeans to reach the shores of Brazil. Or were they? Guanabara Bay is off the coast of Rio de Janeiro. It's the second largest bay in Brazil, and in 1976, it became the location of quite a mystery. Lobster divers there discovered a huge field of remains about 15 miles offshore and under roughly 100 feet of water and 5 feet of dirt. The field was huge, stretching out about the size of 3 tennis courts. For years, fishermen in Guanabara had been snagging and pulling in these tall, barnacle-covered jars. In 1976, a diver by the name of José Roberto Teixeira brought up 2 jars, which were ceramic, tall, tapered, and were very similar to those commonly used by the Greeks, Phoenicians, and Romans between the 2nd century BC and the 1st century AD to hold water, grain, wine, and oil. Even after Teixeira brought up the evidence, the Brazilian authorities refused to investigate. In 1982, however, Teixeira met up with an American diver by the name of Robert Marks. Marks had a great reputation, having been knighted in 3 countries and called in for difficult explorations and dives. He even wrote the UNESCO laws about underwater archaeological digs. Marks has unearthed many treasures from the depths of the sea. Upon first hearing of the amphorae, Marks thought it was a hoax. He thought the jars must be macumba jars, which had been made by local natives and then thrown into the sea. Marks received permission from the Brazilian government and went to check it out. He used sonar equipment to determine the size of the field of ruins. By the end, Marks had found 204 amphorae spread over 3 tennis courts worth of seabed, most of them broken. The sonar equipment revealed the amphorae were tall jars, about 5 feet, too tall to be macumba jars. The more he saw, the more convinced Marks was becoming that Europeans had reached Brazil 1,700 years earlier than expected. Marks came to believe that a ship from the Mediterranean must have blown off course and wrecked in Guanabara Bay. He says the boat must have been manned to make it to where the artifacts were found. Marks brought the amphorae to well-respected University of Massachusetts expert Elizabeth Will to authenticate the artifacts. Will said that they were Roman amphorae made in current-day Morocco around the 3rd century CE. She didn't know how they could have gotten all the way to Brazil. Eventually, Brazil shut down the whole investigation and dredged the bay, pouring dirt all over the discovery. Marks said Brazilian authorities made it difficult to get the permits to excavate. He suspects that Brazil does not want to tarnish the history of Pedro Álvares Cabral, so they literally covered the amphorae with dirt when they dredged Guanabara Bay. Brazilian authorities, however, say the dig was shut down because Marks illegally removed artifacts related to the amphorae. They filed charges to this effect and attempted to ruin his reputation. Whichever reason may be true, Brazil didn't just shut down the amphorae-related dig. In 1984, Brazil shut down all marine archaeological digs in Brazil. In 1985, a businessman by the name of Americo Santarelli claimed the amphorae as his own, solving this mystery. Or maybe not. He said that he had taken a liking to ancient amphorae and had commissioned a potter in Portugal to make some that he could bury in the seabed to age. He claims to have buried 16 amphorae in the seabed in 1961 to age them. He said he only ever retrieved 4 of them, leaving 12 behind. How did Roman amphorae, made sometime between the 2nd century BC and the 3rd century CE, get to the waters near Brazil? When did they get there? If Americo Santarelli actually planted 16 amphorae in the seabed, where did the other 188 amphorae come from? Why did Brazil shut down this and other marine archaeological digs? What do you think? Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ruddy Mysterious. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Tune in next Tuesday for another thought-provoking tale.